No, Pedro, that's your Myers-Briggs type indicator. This is the answer to discussion forum E as in elephant. That's the one that I wanted everybody to do. So I have one person who is an accommodator. Okay, so let me take attendance real fast so I make sure I know who everybody is. Ethan Adams. Okay. And Nathan. Ethan Mann. Kim. Peyton. Pedro. And Isabel. Okay, so this is Isabel. Okay, can I spell it right? Okay, good. What else have you got? You know what yours is?
58% avoider, I think.
58. Okay, so that's about right here. And this is, make sure I got this right. And Nathan, right? Okay.
82% dominant.
82% dominant. Should have another word besides dominant.
Sorry, that's a compromise.
Compromise. And you said was what percent?
83.
83. All right. Do you have yours?
86 accommodating.
86 accommodating. All right, so you're way over here. All right. Anybody else? Okay, that's all right if you don't have yours yet. You need to do it. Okay, so that because I'm going to be talking about this again on Thursday, and we're going to talk about it next week as well. So let me do a labeling of these, okay? So we have our accommodators. All right. We have our avoiders. Right? And we have, your name again is Alex?
Ethan.
Ethan. You're the first Ethan on the list. Okay. And you are a compromiser. All right. And we don't have any here or here. But I do want to explain them so that you can see how it all works. So this is usually, there's different names, but we're going to call it this for right now. And here we're going to call this here. Okay. Oh, Pedro, don't worry about it. Just do it next class. You don't have to do it right this minute. Just make sure that you do it back for the next class or next week. Okay, this is a graph that is utilized to try and find out how people in a work group or even in a family unit or in a classroom or a club where you want to find out what is the dominant style for handling conflict, all right? Now, the first thing we need to say is that conflict is good. It really is. Because conflict indicates that there is a signal going to your head that is saying something is not right. And that may be for yourself or it might be for others. But to have conflict is the starting point for change, right? You cannot change for the better without some degree of feeling like there's a conflict. Now, here's the basic definition of a conflict. Conflict is when you perceive, notice the word perceive, you perceive that somebody or something is going to prevent you from achieving your objective, right? So it might be a person who's getting in your way, right? Bothering you, not allowing you to be the most that you can be and all those kinds of things. Or it might be a thing, such as a lack of resources, not having a budget, or the money, or the time, okay? Those are the things that are important for us in order for us to accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish. And remember, we communicate because we want to achieve goals, right? We have different kinds of objectives that might be instrumental or functional and that kind of thing. So what we do when we have a work group or like a classroom where you would have to interact a lot together. Let's say you are a work group. You're all on the same team, the same shift, but there's conflict going on. Now, the conflict, as I said, is good because it's a signal that somebody or some people are not being able to achieve perception, more real than reality. They are perceiving that they're not able to accomplish whatever the goals are for the work group or that shift change or whatever it is, right? So here's what happens. On a scale of 0 to 100, each of you have your top priority or your go-to way of handling conflict. It doesn't mean it's the only way. It just means that if you have a choice and you can choose, you're going to choose that way, all right? Because it's the highest degree of comfort for you. And we like comfort. All right, so we have two over here who are on the accommodation. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some new names. These are the names that we utilize in work groups to help people visualize characterizations that will help you to understand who they are, right? So, accommodators are teddy bears. All right? That means that Isabel and Kim would rather just, whatever you want to do is fine. Let's just make a decision and go. Whatever you want to pick is okay with me. All right? Accommodators don't like conflict at all. And so accommodators will go out of their way to help other people be happy with them. Does that sound like you, Isabel? Sound like you, Kim, a little bit? You just want everybody to get along, okay? Right? So what happens is by being a teddy bear, you make that happen. Teddy bears, however, have on a different axis what is known as a competitor, or the other name is a shark, who will take advantage of you. Okay? The shark wants to get things accomplished, and knowing that you are going to go along with it will manipulate so that you will do what the shark wants. So this is what happens. For a shark, it is win at all cost. Sharks are highly aggressive, not assertive, aggressive. All right? And they will do anything to accomplish the goals that they want to accomplish. All right, well, we got those aggressive types. And if that means they have to walk all over others, they will. These people typically are good in sales jobs where the competition is a part of the job requirement to be the top salesperson, the top, whatever it might be. Okay? And that's why they're called competitors, because they want to win. They want to win at all costs. Teddy bears, however, pretty much lose all the time. Right? And do sharks ever have any sincere sense of empathy? Oh, Pedro. Not really, and you're going to see why in a little bit. Okay? In order for a shark to be able to go into intelligence, they have to get outside of themselves, and that's difficult to do. So when we talk through the different types of listening, we're going to see how that works and why. Teddy bears are good listeners. They just let everybody talk at them all the time. And then we have avoiders. Avoiders are our turtles. All right? And avoiders will go retreat inside their shell until the conflict is all gone. They hide. They will do anything they can to just not even be seen or to be perceived as part. So like a turtle thinks that when he's hiding in his shell, he's protected, right? He's still out there. All right. Turtles actually have what are known as short-term smartness. Okay? If a turtle for a short term, all right, will retreat so that the turtle can get all the facts, figure out what's going on, calm down, let the other people calm down, all right? And then when people are able to talk rationally, then they will poke their head out and start to do some conflict resolution. If it's a short term, it's good. However, if it's long term and just always avoid, that's not good. Okay? And that's a negative because then nothing ever gets resolved. And those are people, you see this in highly dysfunctional families a lot, where people are always kind of like sweeping all this stuff under the rug. Let's not talk about it. Let's not deal with it. Let's pretend it's not there. That's very much like what avoiders do. Some of you may even see me describing some of your own family dynamics. Okay? Now, we have Ethan up here who is a compromiser. And Ethan, you're a high compromiser. All right? So on this axis, what you're seeing is that there is a starting point that moves into this point, right? This is what we call an owl. Owls are wise. Owls are the ones who will take the time to listen to everybody. They will invest the time in others. Owls tend to be, the wisdom where they want to make sure that everybody has a voice, everybody has a turn, everybody has an opinion that's expressed, and everybody listens to each other's. So this is a person who is highly skilled at empowering others to talk, to facilitate others to participate. Okay? The owl is typically not as concerned about I, and is much more concerned about you. Okay? Now the compromiser is not quite there yet. So the compromiser is on that continuum, headed in the right direction. but there is some degree of fox, slyness associated with the compromiser. Because the compromiser knows when to give and when to give up, all right, and when to take. A compromiser is really good at negotiation to make sure that I win something and you win something, okay? The problem with this, though, is that not only am I going to win something, but I'm going to lose something too. So the compromiser is you give up a little bit to get, I give up a little bit to get. The owl says, nope, we're all going to get what we want. Right? Now, as you can imagine, having a group of owls is going to make a work team a whole lot easier and happier to be with. So why don't we have that kind of wonderful nirvana, everybody gets along? Why is it really hard to have a whole lot of owls? Yes.
Because everybody wants something from other people.
Okay. So there's that element of differences. Okay, excellent. So I want something and you want something else. All right, good. What else is in the way?
Greed.
Greed is going to be over here. Aggressiveness, yes. There could be some greediness coming on, whereas I don't want to share. Okay, good. What else? Well, the biggest issue is that this takes time. It takes a whole lot of time to let everybody talk and to talk it out. It also takes a whole lot of energy so that you are not getting upset at hearing what other differences are that people want and greed, etc. Right? So the owl's job is to get at the heart of everybody so that everybody can share empathy in a common goal and a common accomplishment. Right? Now, the core element of all of this, we're going to get into this more when we get into the next chapter. We're going to come back now to chapter 4 about listening. And if you want to follow along with me, I want to talk on page 88 in your textbook of some key terms. Okay. So last class, I introduced the concept of the cybernetic process. The cybernetic process is explained in your textbook in the first section of the listening chapter that actually begins on page 82. And this is very much aligned with what Dr. Barrett was talking about. That essentially what's happening is that this is the human brain right here. This is you. This is me. And we receive different stimuli. So we are going to hear or see or touch or smell in our senses. And that stimuli that comes into our brain is going to then have to be figured out. So we have to go through a process of, once it's received inside the brain, to interpret what it is. So remember the encoding and decoding? So now we have to decode what that was that we got. And what we're going to try and do is recall something from our experiences. Remember that Dr. Barrett said that everything we talk about in terms of emotions is tied to an experience that we've had, all right? So our emotions are created, right? There's some primal, but by most taken, it's culturally taught to us on how we should behave, right? And we have to then try and remember, draw some similarity, make a connection of what is happening now based on what happened in our experience before. Remember the video? How many of you remember watching the video? I hope you all did. Yes, yes. Remember the picture where you see the splotches like this, and then she shows you what it really is, which is a snake. Remember? Right? That's where you are able to make that connection. You're able to take all this crazy stimulation and interpret it and recall, oh yeah, that's like a snake. And then I'm going to evaluate if it's good or bad for me. It's good or bad. And that evaluation is going to determine what kind of a response we're going to then have. That response might be a fight. It might be, lashing out at somebody. It might be a screaming at somebody. It might be, running away. It might be, talking calmly. It might be a show of tears or what have you. And that response is going to come after all this is going on. When we can think before we respond, then we're into emotional intelligence. Then we're into, oh, this is making me crazy. Hold on, 1 second. If I can fix it. Crazy. I don't want to blink on all of you. If this will work. All right, does that make sense? Okay, so here are the types of listening. And we'll start on page 87 where it says these are the reasons or the purposes. That we want to focus on the messages. We want to better understand what communication is actually being expressed. We want to monitor the nonverbal cues. Remember, that's the back cues, etc. And then on page 88, we listen to discriminate, not in the discriminatory perspective, i.e. racism or something. But we do it to focus on our instrumental type of listening that is going to serve a need, all right? It's the physiological. So this is what we use the most. Right now, you are listening. Most of you are now getting on your phones or your computers, and that's okay. Because what you're doing at this moment is you are discriminating against, I can read it, I don't need to listen to her, I can just go and look it up. Same thing with information. Oftentimes you're going to be listening to gain information that you can use. Critical listening is very important. Critical listening is in this part of the brain where you are evaluating, is this right or is this wrong? It gets into the moralistic elements. Empathetic listening is just that, showing that you are sharing feelings. And appreciative listening is mostly what we do, like when we listen to music or we listen to something that makes us feel good. Now, listening styles. Let's see if you can identify what kind of listening style you have. Right? Page 90. How many of you are busy people? You don't have a lot of time. And so when you listen, it's to find out what you got to do and then move on. Okay? You might be what's known as a time-oriented listener. You're going to listen to the bare minimum to get you out and get you moving on. How many of you really like to analyze? Okay. You like to look at multiple pieces of information. You like to compare, contrast. You like to weigh advantages, disadvantages, etc. Right? Well, if you are somebody who likes to analyze information that you take in, then you are a content-oriented listener. You're looking at the content, just. How many of you are very organized? Well organized. A little bit, maybe sort of, no, yeah, a little bit. Okay, I'm crazy organized. I'm crazy organized. See, I'm crazy organized. Code, everything. All right. I tend to be an action-oriented listener. I listen to know, okay, first I do this, then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to have these people involved, and then I'm going to go out and do it on my own. It's a very action. I listen to figure out what I got to do. When do I have to do it? And how am I going to do it? I am not a people-oriented listener. I can be for my students, but a people-oriented listener are people who are therapists. They really want to listen to you. I really don't. That's not, I mean, don't take that the wrong way. But people-oriented are ones who are in a profession where they really care. Now, when students come into my office, back in the old days when I had office hours, if they had a problem, of course I would listen to them and help them. Right? So these are explained in more detail. I guarantee these are going to be on your test. So you'll want to make sure that you understand what those mean. All right. Now, when we stop to think about what it is in terms of our degree of comfort with conflict, we are going to listen in a manner that is going to help us be either action-oriented or content-oriented, etc. However, the next section talks about what really gets in the way. So do you remember the model that I drew like this, where we had a person over here and a person over here, and there was a channel? Do y'all remember? Right? And there was the N and the D coding. Remember we had a context. Remember? Okay. So we have a message. Right? What is this? When I drew this on. What was that? What did that represent?
Direct line of communication.
No, it's this one.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. You can look it up in your notes. Okay, this represents the word noise. Now, what is noise?
Interference. Just general things that in conversation that we don't intend to, such as like a jackhammer or other heavy machinery that makes tons of noise.
Very good. Is there other kind of noise besides sound?
Yeah, there's also visual noise, something you see, perceive, like a plate of food that just showed up, or a cup of water. something that is unexpected, but
Mhm.
appears anyway, and is considered noise because it's not expected.
Okay, and so it's getting in the way, right, of receiving the message of the fidelity, the accuracy of what it is, the message that's coming to you. So remember I said that excellent. I said that there were many different types of noise. There was the environmental, like the jackhammer noise. There might be a visual, all right? So there might be more environmental. There might also be a psychological noise. So if you just got your paperback of the class before us, and it's a biology class, and you look at the grade and you failed it, and then you come into my class, are you going to be focused on me? Probably not, right? You're going to be really going over and over in your brain what happened on that last test, okay? Or maybe you have a fight with somebody before you walk in, psychological noise. Your brain cannot focus because you are so distracted by an emotion or a feeling or a guess of how another person just treated you. All right? There's lots of different kinds of noise, and we call those examples of a barrier to good listening. And it's a lot of energy, time, and effort to get past them. So suppose somebody walks in. You guys already know that I'm a bit of a screaming liberal from California. And somebody walks in here, and the person is, dressed, three-piece suit, very businessy, looks like, a Wall Street Journal kind of banker, walks in, looks at me, gives me a look like, what are you teaching these students, right? And in that moment, I might, by just looking how the person is dressed, seeing that the person is an old white guy, seeing that the person is, blah, 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 I might jump to some biases about the person, and that noise will get in my way of listening to what the person might say. The tone of voice, the nonverbals, all those things. Whereas the person is just curious, wants to know what's happening in the class, and I immediately go to a negative interpretation versus giving the person the benefit of the doubt and an opportunity to explain what is it that he is wanting to know about what this class is. Okay? So those are some of the kinds of barriers and noise that gets in the way. And those are all explained on your next pages in your textbook. So be sure that you can differentiate. Now, you guys have bad habits, all right? So your poor behaviors are learned. You have observed people doing things that are listed here, such as interrupting. You get by with it, and it's no problem. Or you might observe people eavesdropping on somebody's conversation that they have no business listening to. Another thing is you might, there's different kinds of narcissistic listening, where a person listens only in relationship to, it's all about me. I only care if you're talking about me. Narcissistic. Or defensive listening. Whenever that person starts to talk, I get defensive. Because I know that person is my supervisor, and my supervisor just doesn't like me. So before that person opens the mouth, I am going to be defensive to whatever is stated. Even if the person, that boss, gives me this wonderful compliment, I won't be able to hear it because I'm so used to being defensive when the person talks. There is selective listening, where you only listen to certain kinds of information, right? So maybe you only listen to the people who are liberal, and you don't listen to people who might appear to be more conservative. Or maybe you only listen to people who are Christians and talk about God in their conversations all the time, versus not listening to them. Maybe you are selective listening in terms of communities. You know, you only want to be around people who share the same morality and values that you have, and the rest of the people you don't want to be bothered with. You can see how those are examples of how they could start conflicts, because you're not giving another person the opportunity or the benefit of having a voice. Insensitive listening is what we have going on in our world right now, where people are not listening sensitively to what people say. And as a result, sometimes people are using language that can be polarizing. It can be igniting of people's feelings, their attitudes and their values and beliefs, etc. And then there's the pseudo-listening. Most of you do pseudo-listening classes. You're half with me and half not with me. All right, so what I'm going to do is give you an activity, all right? And this is for you too, Pedro. I want you to look in your textbook, if you have it, on page 101 to 102. And what I want you to do on just those 2 pages is skim and scan through them, especially numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Each one of those relates to one of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? The cybernetic process. So as you are looking at them, I want you to look at how can you improve. Well, first of all, decide out of any of these, which is the area that you, number one, believe you could improve in the most. All right? Accurate evaluating, accurate memory or recall, accurate interpretation, accurate receiving it in the first place, an accurate, appropriate response. Okay, so think about any of those areas that, number one, you think you can improve on. Then what I want you to do is to look at the strategies that they list. Okay, so now we've got some strategies for each one of those. And I want you to share with the class. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to just glance over it. What did you pick? And what strategy do you think you could actually start using? Everybody do that right now.